Hi guys, Shé D'Montford here from Magick Magazine, and we have moved up to Springbrook in Queensland of Australia, which is in the middle of a UNESCO listed World Heritage Rainforest. It's been my dream to live here for ages. What a move it's been. So sorry I haven't been able to post regularly, but we're getting settled and back in our routine now. And what we're bringing you today is a mystery, an intriguing mystery about Alistair Crowley. And the question is, did he fake his own death twice? I wouldn't put it past him, would you? Here's a short video for you based on an article that I wrote in Magick Magazine in 2019 when I received an email asking my opinion on this very mysterious newspaper story that announced Alistair Crowley's grave had been desecrated in Cornwall. Yes, Cornwall. Not in the Woodvale Cemetery in Brighton, where his second funeral took place. Yes, that would mean that Alistair Crowley had 3 funerals. So let's let our wonderful Magickal magazine read you this article in its own voice, in its own talking book voice. And remember, if you find this video at all useful and worthy of your attention, please like, share and subscribe. But for now, let's look into how Crowley might have had the last laugh on the whole world.
Am popeth am Iesu. Rwy'n hiraethu am adrau, roedd eisiau yno. Rwy'n hiraethu am adrau, rwy eisiau dyno.
Did Alistair Crowley fake his own death twice? Alistair Crowley was infamous for many things, one of which was faking his own death for a month. In 1930, Alistair Crowley worked with his friend Fernando Pessoa to fake his death at the Boca do Inferno near Lisbon. Crowley left a sad note about heartbreak at the top of a dangerous rock formation, the implication being that he had jumped to his death. Pessoa, the celebrated Portuguese poet, followed up by feeding suggestive ideas to the local papers concerning the occult symbols that Crowley had used to decorate his note and telling them that he had seen Crowley's ghost the next day. The papers ran with it and announced Crowley's suicide. Some weeks later, Crowley arrived unannounced at an exhibit of some of his paintings in Berlin. It is assumed that he intended his disappearance to be much longer, but could not resist the posthumous adulation of an art gallery showing of his own works. Officially, Crowley died 14 years later, aged 72, on the 1st of December 1947, at Netherwood Boarding House, Hastings, East Sussex, England. Netherwood, as the last resort for Alistair Crowley, was a remarkable Hastings guest house. A lot of people think he died impoverished. This is just not the case. Around the middle of the last century, Netherwood was a prestigious bohemian aged care facility to politicians, scientists, intellectuals and radicals, allowing them to be able to live independently of family or hospitals. And there were not too many of that style of facility in those days. It was expensive, paid for by the dues from his chartered organizations, including the Ordo Templi Orientis and donations from MA members. Crowley's appetite was good, and visitors were expected to bring him delicacies like caviar, good wine and oysters. He was living very well. He still travelled quite frequently to London and to see his lover, Deirdre, and his son. He was in remarkably good health, given his earlier lifestyle choices and his age. He only recorded a mild worsening of his asthma, for which his doctor persisted in prescribing him heroin. Though Crowley claimed to not want this treatment, he did not stop. Netherwood was also where the master magician supposedly spent his final years, playing chess, injecting heroin, and receiving an impressive cast of visitors. Crowley writes of being bored to the point of not talking to most of his visitors, whom he felt were dullards, who only wanted something from him. Despite Crowley's epithet of being the wickedest man in the world, he was by no means an outcast. He rubbed shoulders with the great and the good of the age, including authors Ian Fleming, L. Ron Hubbard and Aldous Huxley, and even being intimate with the mother of a future US First Lady, Pauline Pierce, mum to Barbara Bush. He is known to have cooperated closely with British intelligence services during the Second World War, and there is even a rumour that he invented Winston Churchill's famous V for Victory sign. Despite his association with the upper echelons of society and a life spent travelling the globe, Crowley chose to spend his last years in relative isolation. Toward the end, he was vigorous and his appetite was good, both great signs of recovery. The only indications of a man about to die were his letters to his acolytes for the previous 5 years, where he issues orders for his succession and then changes them and rechanges them. He prepared and then superseded his wills. Then, without warning, Crowley summons Deirdre and his son to him, the only people with him at his death, and is declared dead from bronchitis aggravated by pleurisy. Alistair Crowley's funeral was organised by a very few of his closest friends and associates. In accordance with his last will and testament, his cremation was instructed to take place during an occult ceremony at which magical rituals would be performed and occult verses read aloud. The chosen location was the crematoria at Woodvale Cemetery in Brighton. However, there is no grave nor a memorial. After this, what was left of the great beast was mailed to the United States, where the remains were tipped unceremoniously in a back garden in New Hampshire. It is hard to believe that his fanatical US followers would have made so little fuss about the arrival and interment of his remains in the US. To this day, no one really knows where they are. Apparently they were smashed in Carl Germer's backyard by his wife during a jealous rage under a nondescriptive tree. But none of this can be confirmed. Crowley's funeral took place on the 5th of December 1947, only 4 days after his death. Remarkably quick for those days. It was attended by only 12 people. It was a closed casket. No one saw a body. Having solemnly processed through the grounds of Woodvale Cemetery, the guests congregated at the crematoria, where it was said they read aloud from the Gnostic Mass, the Book of the Law, and the hymn to Pan, whilst Crowley's mortal body was turned to ash. After the funeral had taken place, the local council declared the event a desecration of Holy Land and an act of abuse against the entire town. Just as with Crowley's first death, the media hype was huge. The outrage and terror of the local people of Brighton and Hove was immense. Christian services were hastily organised in and around the city in order to counteract the malevolent forces that the people feared may have been released by the acolytes of Crowley. An intercongregational prayer meeting was held at St. Peter's Church with around 10 clergymen from all Christian denominations attending and packed out pews. According to the newspapers, Crowley was done with. Until the 4th of April 2016, when the Cornish and Devon Post, a weekly newspaper published in Launceston, Cornwall, England, ran the following extract. Alistair Crowley, the famous mountaineer's grave, was disturbed on Friday. The cemetery attendant was performing his nightly rounds when he noticed a large pit about 6 feet across and recalled to our reporters that the sides of the pit were extremely smooth, like it had been carved out with a giant cylinder bit. Authorities are asking anyone with any information on the identity of the thieves to please contact the Clovelly Constabulary at +44 0 1237 431256. So I rang the police station and sent them an email. I was assisted by 2 officers, a Linda and a B. Stapleford, the media officer, Alliance Corporate Communications and Engagement Department, Devon and Cornwall Police and Dorset Police, who assured me that though the incident was reported, the police have no records as to the outcome. I also emailed the newspaper but have received no response. So let's assume, for the sake of this argument, that Crowley, disappointed with humanity and disabused with the pettiness of the bureaucracy he could see forming within his order, decided to opt out of society to have a peaceful demise. It is not that far-fetched. He hints at it in his letters to Germer in 1941. Note that the OTO will probably have to be completely reconstructed. The temper of the new Aeon seems unfavourable for lodges, and the secrets are unintelligible to anyone who has not made a long study of the system. At present there are really 2 sections, the rituals up to Rose Croix, and the essays of instruction dealing with the one real secret. The rituals corresponding with these were never written except the Templar, so I rather expect that it will be up to you to devise some totally new method of communicating the real secret. This has, of course, been the actual procedure. I have simply used my judgment and spilt the beans to those whom I considered worthy. If the rituals, by some miracle, became widely worked, well, they are a splendid basis for the practical teaching. In the above, we can see by this and his many other letters that he has had enough. He is fed up with dealing with the order and writing rituals that people don't understand, and he is happily passing these responsibilities off to others, being Germer, McMurtry and Gardner. 4 years later, only 18 months before his official death, Crowley wrote this about his future plans in a diary entry regarding his will. Feb. 7, 1945. To Saturnus Re-Financial Policy of OTO. 1. A .c quote. S copyrights belong to OTO. Each new book or set of essays or whatnot is a direct gain to OTO. To keep him alive and at work with secretarial help must be the first charge on the funds, whether labelled publication fund or otherwise. 2. Value of grant. If I die or go to USA, there must be a trained man to take care of English OTO. Gardner. If these wishes were adhered to, a few would have had to know about Crowley's secret retirement, perhaps the 12 mourners, and at the very least, Carl Gremmer. If the report of the Clovelly grave robbing is true, then it would appear that Crowley went to Cornwall rather than to the USA. Why Cornwall? Here is a theory for you. Retirement to a profess house. In 1911, Pamela Smith, the artist most famous for the illustrations of the Rider-Waite Tarot, converted to what she called esoteric Catholicism. She had corresponded with Crowley after she became disillusioned with Arthur Waite and his Golden Dawn schism. After the end of the First World War, Smith received an inheritance from an uncle that enabled her to buy a house in Cornwall, an area popular with artists and bohemians. For income, she established a vacation retirement home, very similar in type to Netherwood, for Catholic priests in a neighbouring house. This is in the style of the profess houses of Crowley's Ordo Templi Orientis. One of his central goals for the order was the establishment of profess houses, which he also referred to as retreats or collegium ad spiritum sanctum. In the OTO manifesto, it is claimed that their exact location would be secret, known only to those who are entitled to use them, but that they can be open to non-members. Among other things, a profess house is for the purpose of being, a place where members may conceal themselves in order to pursue the great work without hindrance. They are also temples of true worship, specially consecrated by nature to bring out of a man all that is best in him. These houses are secret fortresses of truth, light, power and love. Dignity and etiquette are to be strictly observed. Brethren of advanced years and known merit may retire at a profess house. In his writings, before his death/disappearance, profess houses seem to be of far greater value to Crowley than local bodies. This certainly seems to be the kind of establishment that Pamela Coleman Smith was running. It continued to be her main occupation till her death. She became very reclusive. She never married, and she herself died in Bude, Cornwall on the 18th of September, 1951. Bude is only a few miles from the Clovelly churchyard that appears to be the true final resting place of Alistair Crowley.